I owned him and sold him. He was I bought him as a yearling, and he was the last horse. So obviously, we still buy horses on spec every year. I think the vast majority of trainers do. In fact, probably Charlie Appleby and Aidan O'Brien are the only two trainers in Europe and Saïd Ben Sarur who don't go to the sales and say, "Oh, I like that, I'll buy it and sell it." So we bought him, and he was the last one to sell. And we had, interestingly, we had two. It was an awful story, really. We had two chestnut colts, and one of them had a more obvious pedigree, and the other one was him. And everyone who kept coming and said, "Oh, I'd like a leg of a horse," I'd show them these two horses, and that would be that, and that they'd always go for the other one. Obviously, he had a good 2-year-old season. He won a maiden and a novice, and then he went to the vintage after we'd sold him. So I sold him to Colin Murfitt. He actually owned the mare. He'd bought the mare carrying a full sister for, nothing, 7 grand or 8 grand or something, which I know isn't nothing, but in terms of this story, nothing. And he was doing some building work. Actually, his company built this room, and paid for by Galileo Gold, actually, as it happened. And he came, he was looking around the yard, and he said, "Oh, I own that mare." And I said, "Well, you should own this colt." And he said, "Oh, I don't really want a colt." So he said, "But I'll help you. I'll help you one day. I'll send you a filly I've bred." I said, "Listen, Colin, if you want to help me, you'll own this horse." He said, "I don't want a colt." I said, "Well, if you don't want a colt, you'll own it for a month, and then we'll sell it. If you'd gone to Hong Kong, we'll win a race or two, and we'll sell it. Promise you this is a good horse, we'll sell it." And he goes, "Okay, fine. As long as you promise I don't own it for long, we'll sell it. That's fine." So he wins 2 races, beaten first time out, second first time out, wins 2 races. We sold him to Al Shakab. He then won the vintage and was 3rd in the Grand Criterium in Paris on Arc Day, which was a great run. But the thought then, he was rated 111, and Guineas winners, this year's wasn't rated very highly after winning the Guineas, 118, but typically we're talking 120 plus. So he had 5 odd lengths to find to even be on the premises of the Guineas, and the plan was always to go the French Guineas. So he wasn't in any of the trials. And we gave him a racecourse gallop on Craven Day at Newmarket, and Frankie Dettori rode him as Al Shakab's retained jockey at the time. And I said to Frankie afterwards, I remember saying, "Do you think this horse could be competitive in the French Guineas?" And he said, "Why would you go to France? This horse would win any Guineas I've ever ridden in." And my knees went like that. So I became more and more bullish from then. And actually, Toby Atkinson, who's in Australia now, but who rode him every day, who had been my apprentice and rode him every day, I remember him saying to me very early on, he said, "I genuinely think this is the best horse I've ever sat on." I said, "Okay, Toby, that's great, but what does that mean?" And he said, "Well, I rode Excelebration all through his 2-year-old career when I worked for Marco Botti." So I said, "Okay, so in your view, this is a better horse than Excelebration." So there were little things like that gave us reason to be bullish. But you have to be bullish going into these races. There's no point going into any competition thinking that you're just there to have a day out, because standing in the also-rans, which is where we all normally end up, most horses, even when your horses are flying, 7 in every 10 get beaten, and standing in the also-rans is a pretty depressing thing on a big day. So you have to go in there feeling bullish about it. Of course, you do get people every year running horses at 200 to 1 in the Derby because it's fun, but it shouldn't happen. But most sensible people who run horses in these big races are fairly bullish about their chances, otherwise you wouldn't be there.